Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In the United States Navy, Carl Brazier made history as the first black master diver and a symbol of overcoming hardship in naval service. After a serious accident in 1966, he faced barriers and returned to duty, completing demanding tests with heavy diving gear. Prisoners tied to the convict labor system remain in wooden rail cars used as rolling jail cells in North Carolina in 1910. These structures on wheels allowed the group to be constantly moved for roadwork and other public projects across the state. During an air conflict, a Spitfire fighter makes a precision maneuver to deflect the path of an enemy device in mid-air. The action aimed to change its course and reduce risk over populated areas, becoming a notable episode in military aviation. The circular concrete structure, known as the Runit Dome, serves as a storage site for contaminated waste from tests carried out at Eniwetok Atoll. The dome was built to contain material affected by activities that took place in the Marshall Islands throughout the 20th century. A bleak silence fills the New York Stock Exchange hall as an employee sweeps a floor covered with worthless papers. The scene takes place the day after the Wall Street crash in 1923, showing the economic chaos that struck the world financial center in those days. The carved inscription on the grave marker honors the memory of a small, cheerful dog who stayed with its owner until the moment of departure. The stone tribute expresses the deep grief caused by losing the animal to a brief and unavoidable fate. A uniformed soldier kisses the hand of his small child in a farewell gesture before leaving for the Second World War in 1939. The scene captures the child's emotional moment as he cries beside a woman while the soldier prepares to depart. Aboard the ship CS Mackay-Bennett, crew members recover victims from the Titanic sinking in 1912. An officer watches as the team carries out the work on deck, documenting the operation after the maritime disaster. An Australian soldier carries a comrade on his shoulders while crossing rough ground toward a field hospital in 1915. The scene became linked to the Gallipoli campaign on the Dardanelles Peninsula during the First World War. A team of workers uses hand methods and simple pulling tools to move a massive stone structure during excavations in Egypt in 1880. Group physical effort was essential for transporting and positioning heavy relics in a period with little mechanized technology available. Workers labor high above the New York waterfront during the construction of urban infrastructure in 1890. They balance on narrow beams without modern safety gear while watching the harbor activity below. Around 1930, a worker pauses to eat a sandwich while sitting on a beam during the construction of a skyscraper in New York, United States. He rests high above a city filled with buildings. The photo records high-rise labor and the daily life of those who built the urban skyline. Rail travel in 1908 is marked by a steam locomotive crossing an elevated trestle structure. Two people sit on the roof of the cars during a winding trip through a mountainous region. The scene illustrates railroad infrastructure and operations in the early 20th century. Human endurance in low-pressure environments is evaluated in a vacuum chamber that simulates an altitude of 65,000 feet. A pressurized suit protects the person while water in a container boils on its own because there is no atmospheric pressure. The scientific test is essential for aerospace exploration. Improving safety for pilots and American football players is the main goal of an impact test led by Dr. Charles Lombard. A mechanical pendulum strikes the protective helmet from the side to measure how well the equipment withstands collisions. Volcanic activity at Mount Sakurajima reaches a critical explosive level in Japan in 1914. A huge column of ash and dark smoke dominates the sky as a boat moves across nearby waters. The natural event represents one of the largest eruptions recorded in Japan. A British rider shows his horse with stripes painted on to mimic a zebra pattern during the military campaign in German East Africa. The camouflage strategy used between 1914 and 1918 likely aimed to confuse shooters or hide the animal in dense vegetation. Members of the youth organization Pioneers take part in training with protective equipment in Leningrad in 1937. The activity was part of a civil defense preparedness program, teaching young people safety procedures for emergency situations. During the 1860s, photographic records were used to document social behavior and altered states caused by drinking. The sequence likely served as a teaching or moral example about habits and customs of that time. Red Cross volunteers worked carefully stretching gauze and surgical dressings during the First World War in 1915. The image highlights the importance of women's work on the home front, ensuring sterilized supplies for field hospitals. William Beebe is photographed inside a bathysphere, marking a breakthrough in ocean exploration. The device allowed the first observation of sea life in its natural deep habitat, symbolizing scientific and technological progress of that era. Rescue and safety training for a fire department includes high jump drills to test team precision and coordination. A firefighter jumps from a building while several colleagues stand below, holding a round hand-held rescue net to cushion the fall. Technological progress in British medicine is shown through radiology work in Westminster in 1934. A professional uses heavy protective gear to operate an X-ray system on an English patient. The record shows early safety protocols in hospital radiography. A secretary and a businessman seek relief from high temperatures while working inside a swimming pool during the intense heat wave that hit Berlin in 1926. The unusual scene shows a typewriter used on an improvised table in the water. Working hard on the Southern Railway in 1910, young Harlan Sanders serves as a fireman on a powerful steam locomotive. This railroad job took place decades before his path as the founder of KFC, revealing an important part of his early work history. Artistic recognition on the stages of New York reveals the path of Diane Belmont before worldwide television fame. The Broadway performer likely appears in a stage production in 1940. The record captures Lucille Ball at a decisive moment early in her career. A behind-the-scenes record from a 1980 film production shows safety mattresses placed below a suspended metal structure. The set belongs to The Empire Strikes Back, where protective equipment was used to keep the crew safe while filming scenes. Post-war shortages in England forced the public into strict limits on consumption in 1951. A single person's weekly food ration includes basics such as sugar, tea, cheese, and canned meat. The scene shows the restrictions of a ration economy. Nurses used protected walkways to move between the wards of a field hospital in 1918. These paths ensured continued medical care and organized treatment during the conflict period. Miran Dajo gives a public performance in the 1940s, known for showing unusual physical endurance in acts watched by crowds and doctors. The performer drew attention by staying calm during the demonstration, turning the act into a curious phenomenon in the entertainment of that time. The wedding of General Tom Thumb and Lavinia Warren takes place under the spotlight of American entertainment in 1863. The figures known as Little People of P.T. Barnum celebrate their union in an event that drew major public and media attention in the 19th century. A small child sits on the ground surrounded by baby alligators at a reptile farm in California around 1900. The image shows a common practice at tourist attractions of the time, where contact with animals was used for entertainment and photos. A curious social craze takes over young people during the 1950s when groups tried to pack into a phone booth at the same time. The documentary record captures several people squeezing into the small glass space, showing an eccentric form of fun and youth challenge. An unusual scene unfolds on the platform at King's Cross railway station in London during the 1920s. Men milk a cow right inside the passenger terminal, revealing urban supply practices or animal transport that were common in that historical period. The beauty industry in 1931 presents an unusual skincare solution with Max Factor's Ice Face Mask. The device is a frame that surrounds the face, fitted with individual ice cubes meant to reduce puffiness and refresh Hollywood actresses. Strengthening children's immune systems is the goal of a public health practice in Moscow in 1958. Several children sleep outdoors in individual cribs placed across the snow under supervision. The Soviet method believed that exposure to extreme winter cold supported physical development. A woman dressed in late 19th century formal clothing uses a mechanical exercise device in 1890. Built with a vertical metal frame and jointed arms, the equipment works through a system of weights and side counterweights. Thomas Higginson is seen pedaling a large wheel tricycle with his daughter in 1884. The record shows the father wearing a jacket and hat while the child sits on a raised seat at the back of the vehicle on a tree-lined road. A sailboat fitted with runners speeds across the frozen surface of Toronto Harbor in 1912. Driven by wind in its large dark sails, the ice boat leans sideways during the turn. Above the wooded canyon of Vancouver, Canada, 1906, visitors cross the Capilano Suspension Bridge, made of wooden planks and hanging cables. The bridge connected trails and walking areas near the Capilano River, becoming a tourist attraction early on. The photo shows the height of the span and the sense of adventure in early 20th century leisure. Railroad infrastructure safety is tested by placing several steam locomotives on a metal bridge. Engineers and workers gather beneath the structure to watch the bridge hold under full load. The civil engineering test confirms the technical viability of the crossing. An aerial view of New York captures the rare event of a solar eclipse in 1925. The record was made from Central Park near 72nd Street, showing the darkened sky over the city skyline and railroad structures. The birth of modern motor transportation is confirmed with the patent of the first internal combustion automobile in 1886. Bertha Benz likely drives the mechanical tricycle known as the patent motor wagon in front of a classical building. The German technical innovation marks the start of the worldwide automotive age. The formal partnership of Apple Computer Company is recorded in a document signed by Stephen Wozniak, Stephen Jobs, and Ronald Wayne in 1976. The third co-founder gave up his 10% share for $800 at the time of the company's founding. Engineer Carl Eliasson presents his pioneering prototype of a motorized snow vehicle, securing the invention through a patent registered in 1923. The basic mechanical design represents the early stage of what would later become the modern snowmobile. A middle-class home in 1890 is the setting for a shared leisure moment between a man and a woman. The Victorian couple spends time knitting in a room decorated with many paintings and portraits. The scene illustrates customs and private life in late 19th century society. A high-fashion atelier in 1910 operates under the close supervision of a master stylist seated in his chair. Two assistants work on the final adjustments of a long dress on a model positioned on a table to make marking easier. The scene reveals handcrafted fashion production in the early 20th century. Urban life in the late 1800s is marked by the traveling service of sharpening knives and scissors. On the streets of the East End in London, a worker runs his hand-powered grinding setup to meet local demand. The scene records the day-to-day rhythm of street trade in the English capital in the 19th century. A wooden building houses the Nicholas Lagerbier House and Restaurant in the Harlem neighborhood in 1885. The record shows the era's commercial architecture with painted signs on the front, revealing a social gathering spot in late 19th century New York. On the cobblestone streets of Istanbul in 1930, a fisherman shows strength while carrying a huge tuna on his back. The record reveals everyday commerce in Turkey, where manual transport of large goods was common before widespread motorized logistics in the region. The world of dirt track speed racing shows the technical ingenuity of Les Blakeborough in 1932. A unique change to the rear wheel replaces the standard tire to improve performance on the track. The record documents mechanical evolution and traction testing in motorcycle racing. A group of motorcycle enthusiasts gathers on a Manhattan street in the first half of the 20th century. The record captures the distinct look of early motorcycle clubs as they began taking over the streets of New York City with their motor vehicles. The official portrait of Ruth Malcolmson records the moment she was crowned Miss America in 1924. The cultural context of the era is shown by the ceremonial sash naming her winner of the traditional beauty contest, securing her place in American pageant history. In 1970, a promotional stunt for the album Atom Heart Mother shows a cow entering a streetcar with posters and the name Pink Floyd featured prominently. The image directly references the album cover, which places an animal as the central element with no band members in front. Liberace's extravagant lifestyle is captured at his home in Sherman Oaks, California. A custom swimming pool shaped like a grand piano with detailed keys along the edge decorates the yard in 1954. The record reflects the eccentric taste of the famous American pianist. Police officer Matt McGrath poses for a documentary-style record, highlighting his dual path as a public servant in New York and an elite athlete. Winner of the gold medal in the hammer throw at the 1912 Olympic Games, he embodies athletic excellence and civic duty in the early 20th century. Traditional Japanese culture is captured through an image of a geisha in Japan in 1905. She stands in front of a classic screen before arranging her complex signature hairstyle. The record captures beauty and customs in the early 20th century. Rural life in 1954 shows a relaxed moment during dairy work. A farm worker directs a stream of fresh milk straight to two cats waiting eagerly inside the barn. The scene illustrates everyday interaction between people and animals on the farm. The private side of the imperial residence in the Netherlands reveals a carved wooden cabinet that hides the toilet facilities of Kaiser Wilhelm. The former German monarch's custom toilet is preserved at Huis Doorn for public visits. The luxury piece illustrates hygiene habits of European nobility in exile. The end of an era in world cinema is recorded on the shores of Lake Geneva in 1977. Charlie Chaplin appears in his last known photograph while traveling in Switzerland in a wheelchair shortly before his death. The record marks the quiet farewell of the comedy genius. Under the sky of South Korea, a huge crowd of American soldiers fills the slopes of a natural amphitheater to watch a musical performance. Marilyn Monroe's appearance on stage reflects a military entertainment effort in 1954, shortly after the fighting ended. In 1968, Brigitte Bardot is photographed walking through an airport wearing a wide-brim hat, sunglasses, and tall boots, while carrying suitcases and a handbag. The look blends fashion and practicality amid the flow of travelers. The photo reflects the actress's standout style and the travel culture of the 1960s. The triumphant return of a war hero to his hometown happens in front of the family's traditional hardware store in Indiana. Jimmy Stewart speaks with his father in the shop founded in 1853 after serving as an Air Force pilot during the world conflict. The history of art and surrealism records a moment of affection between Salvador Dali and his wife, and muse, Gala, in 1909. The couple poses romantically, with Dali holding an umbrella as he kisses Gala while she sits on his lap. Actors Adam West and Leonard Nimoy enjoy a relaxed moment dressed as their iconic characters during the 1960s. The meeting between the performers of Batman and Spock captures a rare backstage interaction in American television of that era. Members of the band Kiss pose in their stage makeup next to their parents in 1966. The visual contrast between the flashy musicians and their traditionally dressed family highlights the generation clash created by the rock phenomenon in that decade. The young Colin Powell uses a mirror reflection to take a self-portrait in 1954. The photograph captures the future United States Secretary of State in a casual moment long before his rise in military and political life. Students and professors at Jefferson Medical College hold a hands-on anatomy class in 1902. The image documents a teaching method in which direct observation and study of the human body were core pillars of medical training in Philadelphia. This travel trunk from 1890 has an innovative design that turns it into a functional dresser, removing the need to unpack. The piece included drawers and organized compartments to make life easier for passengers on long trips by ship or train. Young Babe Ruth is photographed at 16 while training at St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys in 1911. The photo shows the future sports icon in an expectant stance on the baseball field during his youth in Baltimore. A couple poses for their wedding photograph during the Victorian era at an unknown place and date. The groom wears a military uniform decorated with medals and sports a large mustache while the bride holds a big bouquet of flowers. A construction setting in London shows a worker sitting on a suspended wooden beam in 1910. He drinks a beverage while looking down at street activity from a considerable height. The scene illustrates the lack of safety rules in early 20th century urban work. Heavy industry in Italy is represented by work at the Ansaldo shipyard in Genoa in 1933. A worker uses specialized machinery to polish or finish a massive ship propeller, creating a thick shower of sparks inside the factory hall. A long story of care and maintenance appears in a comparison between two different times, involving a rare Volkswagen made in 1942. The record highlights the continued preservation of a historic vehicle over decades by the same owner. A small child shares a joyful moment of spontaneous interaction while meeting a penguin in what is likely a zoo setting. The undated photo captures contact between the human world and marine wildlife, highlighting a sense of wonder in a public leisure environment. During a demonstration in the late 19th century or early 20th century, Nikola Tesla holds a lamp lit without wires, showing power through induction. The experiment reveals his pioneering work in electricity and alternating current. This kind of testing influenced electrical engineering and transmission technology. During filming of Monty Python and the Holy Grail in 1974, actor John Cleese is captured during a break. Wearing full medieval armor, he reads a modern newspaper, showing the contrast between fiction and real life.